I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do this from memory.
Very good.
I'm totally going to Tricia Gleason, Assistant City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council on Monday, June 15th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting a work session on Sustainable Dubuque. So I'll just leave it with that.
Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for June 15th, 2026. As a reminder to our viewers and listeners, due to the nature of tonight's meeting topic, public input is not accepted. However, you may contact the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/council-contacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. Attendance at tonight's session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Leindecker.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel. Here. Sprank.
Here.
Staver.
Here.
Wethel. Assistant City Manager Burbach.
Here.
City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Our work session topic tonight is Sustainable Dubuque Greenhouse Gas Inventory Update. I'll turn it over to Sustainability Community Coordinator Gina Bell for the presentation.
Good evening. Gina Bell, Director of Sustainability. I'm here with my colleague Michelle Kim, who's really going to lead us off, but I'm just excited that you're all here to talk about everyone's favorite topic, greenhouse gas emissions. And we also have on the line virtually our consultants from Lotus Engineering.
Good evening, City Council. I'm excited to be here. My name is Michelle Kim, and I serve as the city's Climate Action Coordinator. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce Rachel Meyer from Lotus Engineering, who led Dubuque's 2025 community-wide greenhouse gas inventory. So every 3 years, we conduct this inventory to measure our community's progress towards our adopted goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030 compared to our 2003 levels. Rachel will share the inventory results, what they tell us about emissions across our community, and the progress that we've made together. So with 2030 quickly approaching, we will soon be bringing forward recommendations for a longer-term science-based emissions reduction target for Council's consideration. And so during your upcoming goal-setting discussions, I encourage you to think about what kind of sustainable, resilient, and thriving community we want to build. With that, I'll turn it over to Rachel. Thank you.
We are the consultants that helped put together the 2025 Dubuque Greenhouse Gas Emissions Inventory. We also helped put together the 2022 Greenhouse Gas Emissions Inventory. And so we're here today to tell you about the results from 2025 and the trends that we've seen between the past couple of years. Not sure if we have the presentation. There we go. Presentation up on the screen. Great. So I'm joined today by my colleague, Emma. She's on the line as well. And I will keep us going here. So if we want to advance to the next slide. Thank you. All right. I just want to make sure that we all start off on the same foot when we're talking about emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, things like that. So the greenhouse effect has always been happening on Earth. Earth has always had a concentration of greenhouse gases, those being carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, other greenhouse gases. They've always existed since Earth became a planet. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, though, we have been experiencing more and more human-caused greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere through things like burning fossil fuels, decomposition of waste and wastewater, and other activities that are human-caused instead of naturally caused. So because we keep adding these greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, naturally greenhouse gases act kind of like a blanket to trap in some of the sun's heat to keep the planet habitable. And so if we're adding more and more of these emissions to the atmosphere, what we're doing is sort of adding more and more blankets to the planet, which is causing it to warm. And the systems are starting to go a little bit out of whack as they absorb all of this additional heat that we are trapping. And what happens then when we throw these systems out of whack a little bit, we get more extreme heat, we get extreme storms like derechos and tornadoes. Sometimes we get other natural disasters that pop up, and these can increase in frequency and in severity over time. And if we continue to emit emissions the way we have, these can continue to worsen and worsen over time. But we know that we can mitigate the worst of these impacts by addressing our human-caused greenhouse gas emissions and reducing those over time. And the way we can do that is by calculating how many emissions are happening on a given year in a given community. So if we want to go to the next slide, what is a greenhouse gas emissions inventory? So what we're doing is trying to account for all emissions that are generated in a community in a given year. So on the screen, you'll see this image that is going to help us sort of understand where emissions are coming from. So the outer box, there's sort of a really thin outer green box on the screen. That compromises our whole boundary for the inventory. So we're looking at a community-wide inventory here, which means we're looking at the Dubuque city boundary. So within the boundary, we can take a look at the different emission sources that occur within the boundary. Those being, the energy used to heat our homes and businesses, electricity, the cars we drive, and any transit or other forms of transportation in our boundary. It's the waste that we produce, both landfilled and human waste, and a bunch of things like that. So what we can do is take account for those in a given year, and then we organize them in a way that helps us understand what our community has control over, or what's really occurring fully within the boundary, and what might be kind of occurring or starting in the boundary, but not emitting until it's outside the boundary. So for instance, if we pretend in Dubuque we didn't have the landfill in the boundary, but if there was a landfill outside of the city in the county, the waste for that, we organize things in scopes. So scope 1 is anything fully occurring within the boundary, and the emissions and activity both occurring within the boundary. Scope 2 is electricity. That one's got a bit of a special way that we have to look at it. So that one gets its own, it's scope 2. And scope 3 is anything where the activity might occur within the boundary. So if we generate human and landfill waste, but it gets treated or disposed of outside the boundary of our community, that is counted as scope 3. Therefore, we don't have full control over how the emissions happen, but we might have control over the activity that's happening within the boundary. So we can organize our emissions by scopes, but really what we're doing is looking at a city's activities and saying how much waste is being produced, or how many miles are our vehicles going, or how much energy is being used to heat our homes, things like that. We add that all up over the course of a year, and then we have our emissions total. So we can head to the next slide. Our emission sources for 2025 are the same as the ones we had in 2022, and they're just a few more that we have in 2022 and 2025 than we did from 2018 back to 2003. So we'll note those later on in the presentation when we get to some of those comparisons, but we just want to highlight here, we have the same sources in 2022 and 2025. The only difference we had this year, Alliant Energy gave us renewable energy generation within the community. They gave us our solar rooftop energy generation. So we were able to include that data in this iteration of the inventory. You can head to the next slide. And some methodology comparisons. So for the most part, everything remained the same between 2022 and 2025. We just had a few things that updated in between those years that we had to account for. So the first being the way that we get to emissions, we use first activity data. So that is something like the kilowatt hours of electricity consumed in our home, or the miles traveled by our cars. And then we use what's called an emission factor to turn that activity into emissions. So that would be, grams of carbon dioxide per vehicle mile traveled, things like that. And we can estimate that for carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, 3 of the main greenhouse gases, based on the activity data. The way that we turn the different greenhouse gases into a common unit, we use something called a global warming potential. So that compares the different greenhouse gases to 1 unit of carbon dioxide. So that way, everything in the end is in the unit of carbon dioxide equivalent. In between 2022 and 2025, we get these global warming potentials from the International Panel on Climate Change. They release their assessment reports every like 7 to 10 years. They released an update to the 6th assessment report, which is the most recent one. And they actually updated the global warming potential for methane because that is a really prominent greenhouse gas. And they split it into 2 separate global warming potentials, one for fossil fuel-based methane emissions, the other for what they call fugitive, which is like methane just from a landfill or methane from a lagoon, more like natural-based methane. So we tried to account for that, those 2 different sources within the inventory. Another note, the vehicle miles travel data that we got for 2022 came from Google. Google has a source called the Environmental Insights Explorer. What they do is they create a model based on your GPS and your Google Maps data, and they're able to tell like your starting point, your end point, and the distance traveled for your trips. They were undergoing a massive methodology update in both 2025 and this year, 2026. So 2025 and 2026 vehicle miles traveled data is unavailable. The next iteration of data available will be coming in 2027. So we instead had to use the state's Department of Transportation vehicle miles traveled data, but that was available, so we were able to use that. We made a couple other changes, nothing as significant as the first 2, but the others I'll note. Alliant provided us, as I mentioned, the renewable energy generation data, as well as their own grid-specific transmission and distribution loss rate. So we were able to incorporate that in there. We split out plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and full battery electric vehicles in this inventory. So we were able to account for the electricity and for plug-in hybrids, the gasoline used in those vehicles. And that is it for the most part. So I think we can advance to the next slide. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Emma to take us through our results.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So now we'll dive into Dubuque's total emissions. So I can wait for the presentation to, is the presentation still up? Oh, there we go. So Dubuque's total emissions in 2025 were 680,236 metric tons. So you can see that scope 1 made up the majority of the emissions at 69%, and that includes residential and commercial energy use, in-boundary transportation, and in-boundary waste. Scope 2 made up 29%, which is the electricity emissions, and Scope 3 made up the remaining 2% with the transboundary aviation and transmission and distribution emissions. And now looking at 2025 emissions by sector. So commercial and industrial buildings made up the largest chunk at 44%. And this includes all energy, electricity, fugitive emissions, and transmission and distribution used by commercial and industrial buildings. Transportation was next at 29%, and that includes all on-road activity, public transit, railways, and port activity. Residential buildings at 22%, so those are all the same sources as commercial and industrial buildings, just on the residential side. And then that remaining 5% were from waste and wastewater and industrial processes and product use. So that's your solid waste, your compost, your wastewater, and refrigerant leakage. Now diving into some comparisons. So looking at 2018 versus 2025. This slide gives us more of a high-level picture of what emission reduction has looked like between the 2 years, since there are emissions now that we're measuring that weren't being measured in 2018. So overall emissions decreased by 17%, and this was largely due to a decrease in Alliance emission factor, which is why we see a decrease in residential and commercial and industrial emissions. We can also attribute some of that decrease to the implementation of gas collection at the landfill and processing of gas from wastewater treatment plant before the explosion. And then comparing it to 2022. So these have the same sources. We saw a 9% decrease between the 2 years, and many of the source breakdowns, as you can see, stayed the same. In this slide, we just wanted to note that waste and wastewater increased slightly from 2022 to 2025, just because there's a small increase in waste tonnage and the wastewater treatment plant having to flare all methane in 2025. So now we've broken down the 2025 emissions by source to show more of a comprehensive picture of what is producing more emissions in the city. So the largest source we have here is natural gas at 34%, and electricity and on-road fossil fuels both at 29%. Solid waste is 3%, and then all other emissions make up that remaining 5%. And then in this slide, we wanted to point out the aviation emissions, just because this inventory included the commercial flight that was added to the Dubuque airport. Now with that flight going away, we would expect to see aviation emissions drop slightly for the next inventory, but also noting that the aviation emissions didn't even make up 0.25%. So the commercial flight realistically didn't have that large of an impact on this inventory compared to other sources. So in the future, if that commercial flight does come back to Dubuque, it really shouldn't be a concern in terms of overall community emissions reduction. Okay, now that we have an idea of kind of what Dubuque's most current year of emissions looks like, we wanted to show how the city compares to other cities around the Midwest as well as Montana. So all of the cities we found inventories for are similar in size to Dubuque, but not all of them have the same kinds of industry, which does impact emissions. So right now, Dubuque's current emissions per capita are around 11.5, so positions it relatively in the middle of all these other cities listed. In the last inventory, there were more cities in Iowa that we could compare to, but those inventories haven't been updated. So we looked at other nearby cities, and it really didn't seem fair at this point to compare those inventories in Iowa that were done in 2018 or 2019 to the one completed in 2025. So, like I mentioned, Dubuque actually does have a lot of infrastructure that contributes to emissions. Lots of these other places have some type of infrastructure. So, airports, universities, commercial industries, marinas. You can see here, Lakeville has a very low emissions per capita, and they don't actually have any infrastructure. But overall, Dubuque happens to have most, if not all, types of infrastructure within the city. So this does play a role in emissions, but also important to remember that it's vital to the city and the economy. And with Dubuque having control and owning a lot of that infrastructure, it does mean that a city has opportunities to really champion in investing in climate-friendly infrastructure in the future. Now looking at emissions over time, and this is specifically looking at comparable sources. So comparable sources are those emissions that we've seen from 2003 to now. In this case, we're just looking at 2018, 2022, and 2025. So this chart does not include the list of sources Rachel shared at the beginning that started in 2022. So between 2018 and 2025, all sources decreased except for on-road gasoline and diesel vehicle emissions. Between 2022 and 2025, all sources decreased except for commercial and industrial natural gas, on-road diesel, and landfill emissions. And then between 2022 and 2025, Alliance emission factor decreased 15% due to a continued expansion of their renewable energy portfolio. And that did contribute to a large portion of that decrease we've seen in electricity emissions. And since 2018, that emission factor has actually decreased a total of 40%. So as Rachel talked about in the beginning of the presentation, an emission factor is that value that represents a quantity of greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere by a specific activity. So in Alliance case, that activity data would correspond to a kilowatt hour, we'll say, in a residential building. So you can multiply that by the emission factor to get overall emissions. So now, even if we see that activity data increase a little year over year, and Alliant continues to work to decrease their emission factor by using more renewable energy in their utility mix, we'll still see emissions decrease. And then the last thing I wanted to call out in this slide is the trend that we see for on-road gasoline vehicles between 22 and 2025. So a lot of this can be attributed to almost a 200% increase in battery electric vehicles in the city since the previous inventory. So this trend has been really great to see, but we also wanted to be cautious in assuming a trend like this will continue. We expect EV adoption to increase, but most likely not to the same extent we see between these 2 years, just because there's a lack of incentives at the federal level. And now looking at emissions over time. So this is 2003 to 2025, and this is all emission sources. So we've seen a 39% decrease in emissions. So the city is making really great progress towards that overall goal of a 50% reduction by 2030 from that 2003 baseline, but there's definitely still work to be done. And this chart shows all emissions, but if we do just look at comparable emissions over time, we are looking at about a 43% reduction. And those are just comparable sources. And now I will hand it back to Rachel to talk about science-based targets.
Thanks, Emma. All right. So back when we were working on the 2022 greenhouse gas inventory, a separate part of the project that we worked on was calculating a science-based target for the city of Dubuque. A science-based target means that the emissions that would be emitted in the city of Dubuque would be in line with the global Paris Accord goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And therefore, it's calculated to help a community understand what their part is in global climate change, as well as keeping in line with that limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius. So there's several different protocols out there. The one that is most commonly used is this one on the screen called the One Planet City Challenge, and that's from the World Wildlife Foundation and the World Resources Institute, WRI. And that there's several pieces of data that are included in that methodology that we pulled from in order to estimate that science-based target back for the 2022 inventory, those being the US Human Development Index score. So we pulled that for the US. We have population projections for Dubuque. We have the baseline year of 2018, scope 1 and 2 emissions. So if you remember back to the beginning, scope 1 and 2 are going to be anything occurring fully within the boundary, and the emissions also fully occurring within the boundaries. So that's building energy use, transportation, waste and wastewater, electricity use, all of that within the city. And the reason the baseline year is 2018, the protocol requires us to pick something between, or pick an emissions baseline year between 2016 and 2019. It's believed by the science that that is when emissions peaked globally. And so everything can be estimated off of that. So Dubuque had a 2018 inventory, and we were able to use that as our baseline year. And we grabbed the community's population from 2018 to help us estimate that baseline data. And then from that, we project out, there's 2 sets of targets associated with a science-based target. The first being a 2030 target, and the second being a 2050 target. So every community has the same 2050 target. That one is net zero emissions by 2050. That helps us really keep on track fully for that 1.5 degrees Celsius limit of warming. And then communities have their own unique 2030 target based on what their baseline emissions are and their size and their population. So using the data and the protocol from the One Planet City Challenge, the estimated science-based target for Dubuque is a 62.4% decrease in emissions from 2018 totals by 2030. That we understand is a very ambitious target to be setting, especially given the changes at the federal level, which saw incentives for a while, took away incentives, regulations changing all the time, making it a little bit challenging to meet targets like that. But the goal and why we want a science-based target, we know emissions are happening and we know climate change is happening, and we're starting to feel things on the local level all around the country, all around the world. And we know that the only way really to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change are to do something, actions, anything. And we know we have to limit the emissions that are going forward. And so while we know it might not be something that is fully achievable, we like to set ambitious targets knowing that we're trying to do our part and we're trying to do our city's own, account for our city's emissions going forward, and setting a target that will be ambitious, but won't be so overly ambitious that it seems impossible and doesn't allow for any action to continue or for any action to occur at all. So we know it's to do our part going forward. So we can measure how far we are or how close we're getting to that science-based target. So if we want to go to the next slide. All right, so 2018 is our start date or our baseline year for this science-based target. The scope 1 and 2 emissions total you can see on the screen, that's 819,408 metric tons of CO2 equivalents. You can see in the table what the estimated emissions for that year are in that top row. So in order to meet that target in 2030, Dubuque's emissions in 2030 would need to be around 308,000 metric tons, and then 0 by 2050. Though the reality emissions are the first 3 years. So in 2022, we had 734,531 metric tons of scope 1 and 2 emissions. And then now here in 2025, we had just shy of 668,000 metric tons. So from 2018, we have already seen a 20% decrease in emissions, and that's excellent. That's a lot of decrease over a 7-year period. So that's great. It does seem like there's a long ways to go to hit that 2030 target, but that doesn't mean that we can't keep striving to hit that target and try to put in the work to get us to where we want to be. And if you go to the next slide, we've broken this target down by the different sectors. So before we showed you the pie charts with the various sectors, stationary energy is going to be any kind of building energy use, electricity, natural gas, things like that. Transportation, waste and wastewater, and then industrial processes and product use, or the leakage of refrigerants from HVAC systems and buildings. We can see here what the real percent reduction has been so far from these sectors in 2022 and 2025. And then from 2030 on, that's the estimated target that we would want to see for emissions reductions in 2030 and beyond. So we can see so far in 2025, we've seen a 26% reduction in stationary energy use emissions from 2018. We've seen a 21% increase in transportation emissions from 2018. So that trend is in the opposite direction of where we're wanting to go. And then waste and wastewater, you can see we've seen a 68% reduction so far. And that is primarily due to those systems at both the landfill and the wastewater treatment plant in capturing and flaring methane gas. So we are pretty much on track with the waste and wastewater. We just want to continue to push for diversion of organic and recyclable materials going forward. This last one too, I want to note, so we didn't have an estimate of industrial processes and product use emissions in 2018. So we don't have a direct comparison to 2018. But what I can say is between 2022 and 2025, we have seen an 8% decrease in those emissions over that time frame. So that trend is starting to head in the right direction. And as you can see, in 2050, we're hoping for zero emissions in all sectors. If we go to the next slide, just want to frame this in the frame of business as usual emissions. So another thing we did in the 2022 inventory, we updated what we call our business as usual emissions model. So if we just stood there and did nothing all the way to 2050, what would emissions look like without us actually making any action at all? So without doing any additional actions, you can see that emissions in 2050 are down to 457,648 metric tons. That represents overall from 2022 a 38% decrease in emissions just by doing not a whole lot of anything and letting trends continue the way they have been. So that being any local adoption of electric vehicles, any energy efficiency that's already sort of happening in the background. And the main trend that's being baked in here is Alliant Energy's goal of 100% renewable electricity by 2050. So that's what's being baked in. And I just want to highlight the yellow star on the screen is real 2025 emissions. So we're actually below the total emissions that we would have expected in business as usual projections in 2025. And that's good. That means we are making additional progress, whether actions are being taken or if that's from the electric vehicles being adopted, the solar energy systems in the community, things like that. So we're above business as usual projections, and that's a great thing. And I will pass it back to Emma to take us home.
Thanks, Rachel. So now just looking at what Dubuque is currently doing in terms of sustainability and highlighting some projects going on. The Energy Savers program. So this program provides high efficiency furnaces or water heaters to low-income residents who have had appliances for more than 10 years or ones that are in disrepair. The Youth Climate Action Fund, and this fund has given around $85,000 out in 19 microgrants to local youth and youth serving community-based organizations. The direct pay provision program, so the city received $427,000 for the airport solar array and EV chargers. Branching Out Dubuque, this is an initiative that Parks and Rec is leading with a goal of planting 5,280 trees around the city. And the city has been utilizing Energy Star Portfolio Manager to manage utility usage and trends for municipal buildings. Now looking at what's ahead for Dubuque. So currently there are 2 municipal solar energy projects in the pipeline, and both of those are in that feasibility study phase. Updating the climate action plan so the 50% reduction goal by 2030 can reach a wider audience, and then doing another round of the Energy Savers program. And looking long term for Dubuque, we just wanted to put out some recommendations. So those would include investing in climate-friendly infrastructure and public transit, considering climate adaptation efforts like green stormwater infrastructure and land conservation, making sure to focus on incremental efforts. So this can be done through policy, and really even the smallest program or effort can make an impact over time. We recommend continuing to do outreach and education in the community, identifying sustainable funding sources to keep all of this good work going. And then lastly, we recommend that the city considers fully adopting a science-based target. Ultimately, all of this put together will lead to long-term climate benefits for the community, and that includes balancing that social cost of carbon, natural disaster mitigation, cost savings, and overall community resilience. And with that, we will open the floor to questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Rachel and Emma, and of course, Gina and Michelle. So I'll kick us off and then see what else we have. But all right, so we have a sense of what the science-based target is. It is clearly ambitious compared to where we are. I guess, the biggest question in my mind is one that we just kind of keep asking. I mean, we had a really good opportunity with some legislation that came from the federal level in a few years ago. But that legislation is no longer on the books, so we don't have what was known as the Inflation Reduction Act to kind of help with things like credits to individual users or business users or any sort of entity to be able to have federal dollars to be able to help with this. We also live in a state that isn't actively pursuing this currently from a legislative standpoint. So it kind of falls on us then to really do anything as a community to really push for some sort of a reduction. So I just want to realistically ask the question. I mean, what really is left for us to be able to work on? I mean, if we're all on our own and we don't have the assistance of a state government or a federal government to really take big swipes at this, where are we? I mean, what are some things, some ideas that you might have for us of ways in which we could continue to focus that could continue to bring that closer to the target that we want to now see?
Thank you for that question.
I think that is a great question, and one that you are not alone in asking. I think a lot of communities have that same question. To start, I think I would try to take a stock of what you have the ability to do and what you have the ability to control, which is maybe starting with your municipal operations and saying, okay, let's take a look at our buildings. Let's take a look at our fleet vehicles, what we own and operate, and how can we, A, lead by example for the community, and B, make our operations as efficient and as clean and as sustainable as possible, and start there. Then I'd also want to look at, are there policies I could implement or ordinances that might make an impact? So things like building energy codes, trying to continually adopt the most updated and most efficient building energy codes if you're able. Also, I think that outreach and engagement part is really critical, and just getting people on the same page and trying to get that enthusiasm in the community, because a lot of this you can't actually implement yourself, right? You can't force a homeowner to put solar on their home. You can't force someone to recycle. But providing the outreach and education and building that community sense of excitement and willingness to pitch in can help to, build that support for when those, maybe that next IRA does come around, and then we've got those incentives at the federal level again, and then people are ready to jump on and try to get those incentives and implement them locally.
Thanks, Rachel. Gina, I know you want to say something too.
I would just add, I would echo what Rachel said. I think that we have a lot of opportunity with our existing infrastructure and our fleet. We have staff that are working on this and talking about it, and what does maintaining this look like? What do improvements that are smart and affordable, but also going to save us energy and money in the long run? And so we're thinking about it, but yes, it isn't going to be a windfall of funding. And this is part of what we're doing. We're working on an internal update of the climate action plan, because we want to make it shorter term and very actionable, not just for city operations, but it is a community-wide inventory. And so we want to look at how can we help inspire or, offer a carrot to folks that do want to take action.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Russell.
Thank you. Gina, you could probably answer this, or one of the people on the phone. I was wondering, the chart that you showed, how we compare to the other communities that were listed there. I wondered how we compare in our action plans. Do they have similar kinds of aggressive work plans like we have? Or, do they have a community action plan like we have? Do you know?
I don't know. Rachel, I don't know if you have looked into it when you were doing the comparison.
Yes, I do have an answer. So I believe if we are looking at all the communities, every single one of those has a climate action plan. I believe Lakeville's is still, it's either really new or still in development. But all of them have climate action plans. Their targets, I would say, vary. I know for a fact Bozeman, That's the one I'm looking at. Bozeman has a science-based target. Theirs is pretty close. I think it's a 64% decrease from their 2018 inventory by 2030. The others, I believe, are not science-based targets, but I could dig a little deeper into each of their specifics.
Well, I thought the chart was interesting, but it would be interesting if they also had, if you also had, how are they doing? You know, we are down X percent. How much are they down in the last 3 years? I'd be curious to see some of those kind of comparisons in the next round. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Thank you very much. So our goal is 50% by 2030. And when we first adopted that goal, it was a lofty goal. And I think the way to get the community excitement is to accomplish a goal instead of just moving the targets. Now, I appreciate that there are more needs, and there's a great need for this kind of work in the world, and we'll do it locally as well. But I think we want to achieve our goal of 50% by 2030. We got 43% in 2026. That would just to me, we want to build the excitement to accomplishment, and then we'll get to the next goal. So a couple things. It's very interesting. We absolutely have to do our best to do what we can. Yeah, it's interesting when I watch the news and those war combatants are blowing up huge oil reserves and these big billowing clouds are going into the sky. I'm saying, I hope Dubuque, hopefully Dubuque's part can mitigate some of this. But I mean, we have this enormous amount of pollution going up right now. The other thing that I'm glad that we want to plan and do the right thing that's smart about how to get it done. And I feel, I've told Gina Bell several times, that the more money you use, the more energy you use, because it took energy to make that money. So there will be diminishing returns if we just go too much. We have to make it systematic, and we have to have it planned. To me, we plan to be 50% by 2030. We're not there yet, but I think we can get people excited and get over the edge. But I mean, Dubuque, we are happy to have Gina Bell here, and our residents have made that accommodation, and she's doing great work. Michelle Kim is a wonderful gift for us for as long as she can be here. But those are my thoughts. And I would appreciate your thoughts about the connection between achieving the goal 50% by 2030, between that and community excitement in achieving that goal.
Gina first, maybe?
Sure. I can't stand up here and honestly answer because I don't know. We haven't talked to folks about, is achieving the goal that we set forth in 2006 more important than having a science-based target? So I don't want to speak to what the community is, but we will build in engagement as we update this and put together a proposal that shows what the community wants. I mean, I think we can potentially keep the goal and meet it and set a longer-term goal that is more ambitious and science-based. That's also a possibility. So as we explore that, we will be in communication with you all and proposing it to you so that you get to make the final decision, but certainly the community's input will be involved in that.
All right. Ms. Wethel, you can jump in anytime if you have anything you'd like to say.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I just had a couple of thoughts. I know as a council, we have discussed building inventories, and I think of those, I guess, and please, share your opinion on this as well, if you all would. The idea of, even though right now doing a building inventory, we may not have the funding to take action upon that knowledge. We would almost be creating, if you will, shovel-ready like projects so that should state or federal funding become available, we are ready to apply out of the gate for that funding.
I'm just curious as to whether other cities are doing, um, say, actively doing building inventories. Certainly, we have a historical city that has some more historical buildings that we feel we could improve there. Um, when you look at other cities, both of the consultants from Lotus, if you could comment on that. Yeah, happy to. We work with cities across the country, varying in sizes from as small as 1,000 up to, upwards of 1 million people. And I think every city is trying to figure out these days, what can we do with what we have, and knowing that the actual funding to do different projects can swing over time. And depending on which state you're in, we have clients at the moment in Kansas, in Alabama, in other places where there is minimal state support. Those communities are still trying to get the work done. And they also, like, I think almost all communities these days are strapped by reducing funding to be able to do the work. And I think there is a lot of work in the background happening to set them up for future funding opportunities, because we can't assume there will eventually be funding, but we can work and hope that it does come back around at some point, or that some maybe foundational funding becomes available someday. So there are communities across the country that are working on building inventories that are really focused on finding those inefficiencies or those projects that really would be important to implement going forward. A lot of that work is happening, especially around the Denver metro area where I'm based. Communities are starting to do those, at least municipal building stock, if not the full community building stock analyses, to know, should we be trying to push for those updated building energy codes? Should we be trying to get people to switch from fossil fuel powered heating sources to heat pumps or other electric based heating sources? Whatever that looks like in their community. So communities are doing that. I think communities are doing whatever is most relevant within their communities. So there's some that are more pushing transit and transit oriented development, or just increasing the amount of transit or types of transit options in their community. Some are more interested in looking at their own municipal fleets and trying to swap out electric vehicles, and just doing the work to inventory, that's the word, inventory their own fleets instead. So it looks different based on what the community's priorities are, but there are ones across the country doing their own building stock analyses in the interim. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this. A couple more thoughts just to share before we close it out. I do think that the answer of trying to work on what we can best control and what is within our reach is a really smart approach for right now. In a time like this where we don't have a whole lot of assistance to get things like this done. We have a few things going already, and they were on the slide here, but for one is the branching out initiative. I think of all things, this is probably this is the clearest and easiest path to doing something that could make a real difference, and it can make a serious impact in people's lives, and you can see it all over the community. And you can be a part of it. You can help to plant a tree. You can be at one of the schools that Ms. Roussel visits on a frequent basis to be able to plant some of these trees. You can do some of those things, and I think the more we continue on with that initiative, the better. So hopefully we can continue to have that type of enthusiasm about that. The other one is listening to our young people. The Youth Climate Action Fund is an incredible opportunity for us. The fact that we do have some foundation assistance through the Bloomberg Philanthropies and a partnership with them that has continued over several years, I think if we can have young people excited about this, then that helps to be able to pass that excitement along to maybe the other generations that are here. Because that really is, you never know what kind of ideas you're going to get. You never know what type of work the youth are going to come up with. And there's some pretty incredible ideas out there. So I'm excited to have another round of that and be able to see that too. And then we have to keep continuing to do the things we're doing. You know, I know that we had major infrastructure issues with the wastewater treatment plant due to the explosion that was there. But the fact that we were using that system to capture methane and then doing the same with the landfill, I would hope we continue to do that. I would hope that we can continue to see that because it clearly made a big difference. I mean, it was something that it was one of the things we could control. We took a shot at it and we started to do something with that. The other things are a little harder. You know, the building inventory for things like us, residential stuff is a little more difficult. And then just looking at our fleets and those types of things. You know, we have done some work with that. We've got electric buses on the way, you know, to be able to do these things. But I think we need to take little bites at that. But for right now, the focus on the things that are working, I think we keep that up and then really position ourselves, as was mentioned earlier, for when we get more assistance to be able to do these things, because things change, attitudes change. So hopefully we continue to work towards a place that we can keep beautiful and keep breathing well. So thank you very much for your work on this. We'll continue to talk about it, continue to share some of all these ideas, and do appreciate the work session today. All right. Well, there is no further business in this work session, so we will be adjourned for probably about 7 minutes here until 6:30.
unmuted.
Trish L. Gleason, Assistant City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a regular session of the City Council to be held on Monday, June 15th, 2026 at 6:30 PM in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Good evening and welcome to a regular session of the Dubuque City Council for June 15th, 2026. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during the sections on the agenda where public input is accepted. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input on the items they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which items you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which item you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance at this session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Leindecker.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Staver.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
Assistant City Manager Burbach.
Here.
And City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Mayor Kavanaugh, I'll turn it over to you for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Trish. I invite all who are able to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Starting off tonight are consent items. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the consent items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any person input and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order. Please state the item you would like removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and consideration. Consent items can be found on pages 1 through 7 of tonight's agenda.
All right, thank you, Trish. Do we have anyone who would like to remove any of the consent items for separate discussion this evening? Seeing no one here. I'm like, wait, there first, and I'll come back to you. Yep. Anyone virtually?
No.
Okay, all right, yeah, Mr. Leindecker, go for it.
Number 12.
Number 12, all right. Any others from the desk? Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file the documents, adopt the resolutions, and deal with the consent items as recommended, except for number 12.
Second.
Got a motion by Resnick and a second by Roussel. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver.
Aye.
Leindecker.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. All right, number 12.
Sorry, I apologize. Can I abstain from 2 items? Or is it too late on the consent agenda?
Since we've already voted, but that's considered routine business, so it wouldn't create a conflict, so
Okay,
you would be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so we're good to continue on? Okay, all right. Back then to, it was number 13, I believe, right? I'm sorry, was it 12? 12, sorry, I just marked the wrong one on my page. Number 12, so here I'll take a motion in a second to put it on the table, please.
Also move.
What's that?
Motion.
Motion, okay. The motion here would realistically receive and file and approve.
I motion to receive and file and approve.
Second?
All right, we've got a motion by Landecker, second by Resnick. Mr. Landecker, come to you.
Yeah, I just, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I was hoping maybe Wally or Matt can talk us through kind of this process as it relates to the subject grant, and maybe more specifically about the utilization of a consultant and how that's going to be paid, and if that's guaranteed to be paid up front or if it's based on performance. And then as it relates to that, I did see in here the Community Foundation expressed an interest to help in being the physical agent and offered options for future endowment opportunities. And I wanted to see if it was under consideration for them to potentially help on the fundraising consultant side.
I'm lost there on my packet, so I'm looking on my phone. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Wally Ware, my Planning Services Director. So yes, this is kind of that step in that stage where we did a historic structures report, received funding through the Jeffress Foundation as part of that, and we've been communicating with Jeffress to take on a challenge grant through their organization. And as part of that, we're been invited to submit an application, which is what's before you tonight, would be the letter that would go on to them, asking us to be able to participate with that in order to help pay for a considerable amount of the work that needs to be done on the Eagle Point Park Pavilions, the Alfred Caldwell property. So as part of that, there's a fundraising component that's associated with it, and we've been working with a consultant in order to, we went out, did our request for quote, received a consultant in order to look at helping providing some of that funding, that additional silent raising of the request for the 1/3 of the requirement for the funding. And then we've been working with the Community Foundation. They've expressed some interest with regards to helping support the city, working directly with that partner in order to help some of the fundraising components associated with it. So the fundraising component that we're working with is not a local firm, and it's Chris Olson, who's worked with multiple projects, especially with Four Mounts and the other associated with it, and has experience working with fundraising. Felt that we really needed a local person to help involve with that, and that's where conversations have been involved with the Community Foundation and some others that have been associated with it. So in the current budget, in the Parks Department budget, there's funding for a consultant over the next 3 years. It's a multiple year fundraising campaign. And as part of that, for each fiscal year, there's a small portion that's budgeted in the Parks Department to help pay for the consultant fees for that as we move forward with the fundraising for that.
So it's ultimately the consultant, it's not paid on performance, it's actual hard costs that we'll be covering upfront.
Based off of what we have in the budget, I don't know, do you have any questions with regards to that? So once we get approval to move forward, we'd ask for that actual physical dollar amount that's associated with it. So until we actually get invited and approved for it, then we'll have that conversation. It's going to be a percentage, or is it going to be a dollar amount associated for the cost? So,
Okay,
yep.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, Mr.
This is a great opportunity, by the way, I just want to say. So it's something that's definitely needed, especially with the historic structures report, and to be able to be invited to even apply for this, it's amazing. So, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Wally. Mr.
Yeah,
Resnick?
I was just hoping that you'd give us an overall, now, so the Jeffress Family Foundation Capital Grant campaign would help us to pay for these costs. And we're going to match that a bit with this, with some fundraising. But if we don't get that, hopefully we'll be invited, and then we can get involved with that challenge grant. Then it's actually going to cost us more if we don't get this help with this funding. Is that correct?
Correct. It's a 2-to-1. So for every dollar that Jeffress provides, we're required to come up with $2 for that. So for the total cost of the project and what we're asking for with the budgeting, the funding, and then also doing the fundraising. That's why we have multiple years for the fundraising. Typically, what you'll do is they're going to pay for a third of it. We'll go through a silent phase where we'll go out, work with the consultants, with the donors, and then once we receive that 2/3 and remaining, then we'll go to the public for additional funding. A lot of times the consultant says this is kind of a smaller ask. It's about $2 million as opposed to some of the larger asks that are being brought before the community with regards to that. So there's some ample opportunity, especially for such a nationally significant property. One of the things that we're looking at doing is applying to the certified local government, which is what we're part of as the Historic Preservation Commission, to apply for a grant in order to get the park listed as a national significance, and then we'll be able to apply for a Save America's Treasures grant. So it's not only just asking for physical dollars from donors, it's actually assisting with applying for additional grants that could be leveraged as a match as well, too. So
It sounds like we're bringing everything to bear against this problem of beautifying and making Eagle Point Park the trophy really that it is, and we love it, and this is part of the plan to get it to that higher peak.
Yeah, and this is a great partnership with the Parks and Rec Department and the Planning Department. Chris Olson she's lights out when it comes to historic preservation and doing these types of things. She's the one that made the communication with the Jeffers Family Foundation, working forward the Save America's Treasures grant. There's even some additional grant money that we can apply for too. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions or discussion on this item? All right, motion here. Thanks a lot, Wally. Oh, please, yeah, go ahead, Ms. Wethel.
Thank you. Wally, I just thought maybe I would ask you to comment. Is it correct to say that we actually received a Jeffers Family Foundation planning grant just to do the planning for this step? Is that right?
That
I
is-
remember that correctly?
Yep, that is correct. Yep, so we received that Jeffers Family Foundation grant for the planning grant, which helped pay for the historic structures report. And then that next step was to apply for and move forward with the challenge grant. So we had to, it's a different process that you normally would see. It's ask, they'll report, come back, and then they'll invite you to have an opportunity to apply. So they're pretty excited about this project, especially being the nationally significant Alfred Caldwell and the Eagle Point Park Pavilions in such a prominent location. And the upper Midwest is where the Jeffers Family Foundation is based out of, Wisconsin area, so.
Well, I think it's an appropriate time to congratulate you and all of the city staff on exceptional work just to get us to the place in which we were invited to apply for this. And so I would be in full support. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, motion here is to receive and file and approve. So Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next on the agenda are items to be set for public hearing. We have 6 items. Item number 1, assignment of development agreement with Gronin Development, Inc. to Fifth and Main LLC. 2, issuance of not to exceed $50,000 water revenue capital loan notes for the planning and design of the lead water main replacement project. 3, well number 7 rehabilitation phase 3 project. 4, Dubuque Fire Headquarters bunk room remodel project. 5, proposed second amendment to the development agreement with Kenseth Hospitality Company, Inc., which has additional public input added to the agenda. All these requests are asked to be set for July 6, 2026.
Mr. Mayor,
Giselle?
I move to receive and file, adopt the resolutions, and set the public hearings for July 6th.
Second by Sprank.
Got a motion by Roussel, second by Sprank. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Moving on to boards and commissions, appointments to following boards and commissions to be made at tonight's meeting. Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission, Board of Library Trustees, Building Code Advisory and Appeals Board, Cable Television Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, Long Range Planning Advisory Commission, Park and Recreation Advisory Commission, Zoning Advisory Commission, which has additional public input added to the agenda.
All right, thank you, Trish. All right, so this is going to take us a little bit, but I think we can do it pretty efficiently. So there are going to be some where I will suggest that we ask for a motion. For instance, the first one, there's only 2 slots open. There are 2 applicants there, so I would ask for a motion when I get to that. But then there's also going to be some where we were going to ask, I'll go back to Trish and I'll ask for a roll call vote, which the second, the Board of Library Trustees, would be a good example of that one. So we'll try to make it clear before we do that, and then we can just work our way through this. So first up, we've got the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission. Here we have 2 3-year terms through June 30th, 2028. We have 2 applicants, Doug Donald and Gail Chavanel. In this case, I will entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
I motion that we appoint Doug Donald and Gail Chavanel to 3-year terms on the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission.
Second?
Got a motion by Sprank and a second by Resnick. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have the Board of Library Trustees. Here we have 2 3-year terms through July 1st, 2029. In this case, we have 3 applicants, Andrew Bland, Tasha Rosenbaum, and Paul Uzel. So I would ask, please, that I'm going to have Trish go back to a roll, and we're going to work our way through these 2. So for the first 3-year term, I would ask that each council member state who they would like to be appointed, and the person with the most votes will be appointed to that term.
Staver,
I'm sorry, I'm missing the. The 3 applicants.
Oh, it's actually on the written one, Mr. Staver? Might be the easiest place to look at it, just because it's written out right under there for boards and commissions. So all 3 names are listed right there.
Bland.
Okay, thank you. Next up.
Leyendecker,
Sorry, we were saying who we would like to vote? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bland and Rosenbaum.
And for the first one, we just do one name.
Oh,
so you
sorry.
pick a name and then like the first
Okay.
one, and then we kind of winnow it down from there. Yeah, yeah, I know. I think this might be the first time we've actually dealt with this many applicants with you guys new to the council. So it's okay. Yeah, we'll just so your vote
Bland.
is Bland. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Leyendecker.
Sprank,
Bland.
Wethel,
Dr. Andrew Bland.
Resnick,
Andrew Bland.
Kavanaugh,
Andrew Bland.
Roussel.
Andrew Bland.
All right, so Andrew Bland is appointed to the first term there. All right, so now we're going to go on to the second term, so we'll do the same thing. So each of us will choose the person we would like to appoint to that particular term. Trish, call roll, please.
Staver,
Rosenbaum.
Leyendecker,
Rosenbaum?
Sprank,
Paul Uzel.
Wethel,
Paul Uzel.
Resnick,
Rosenbaum.
Kavanaugh,
Tasha Rosenbaum.
Roussel.
Paul Uzel.
All right, so in that case, Tasha Rosenbaum is appointed to the other 3-year term for the Board of Library Trustees. Okay, next we have the Building Code Advisory and Appeals Board. Here we have 1 3-year term through January 1st, 2027. We have 1 applicant, Rod Schumacher. So in this case, I will entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
I nominate Rod Schumacher for 1 3-year term on the Building Code Advisory and Appeals Board.
Second.
Got a motion by Sprank, second by Roussel. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. Next up, Cable Television Commission. Here we have 3 3-year terms through July 1st, 2029. Here we have 4 applicants, Georgina Guerrero Galvin, Scott Goddard, Pauline Maloney, and Ron Tigas. So in this case, we're going to have to do the roll call 3 times to make sure that we get everyone through. So we'll take the first here, please.
Staver,
Goddard,
Leindecker,
Galvin?
Sprank,
Galvin.
Wethel,
Tigas,
Resnick,
Galvin,
Kavanaugh,
Galvin.
Roussel.
Galvin.
All right, so Georgina Guerrero Galvin was appointed to the first term. So now we'll move on to the second term, please.
Staver,
Goddard,
Leindecker,
Goder?
Sprank,
Pauline Maloney.
Wethel,
Pauline Maloney,
Resnick,
Pauline Maloney,
Kavanaugh,
Pauline Maloney.
Roussel.
Pauline Maloney.
All right, so Pauline Maloney is appointed to the second term. And then our final terms. Trish, would you call that roll, please?
Staver,
Goddard,
I'm sorry, I did not hear that.
Goddard,
Leindecker,
Scott Goder?
Sprank,
Ronald Tigas.
Wethel,
Ronald Tigas,
Resnick,
Ronald Tigas,
Kavanaugh,
Ronald Tigas.
Roussel.
Ronald Tigas.
All right, so Ronald Tigas is appointed to the third term there. Okay, next up, we have the Historic Preservation Commission. So I'll call everyone's attention to the fact that each of these terms is a specific type of term. So for instance, we have a 3-year term that is expiring architect at large, another 3-year term that is expiring living within the Langworthy district, and then another 3-year term within the Old Main district. And if you'll note, there is one applicant for each of these specific districts who would fit each of those. So I think if someone would like to dare, we could take a motion here and be able to appoint each of these people to the right place and be able to skip the roll call in this case.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel?
I move to appoint Matthew Klein to the Living Within the Old Main District appointment. I would move to appoint Christina Monk for the Architect at Large and Chad Withoft to the Living Within the Langworthy District term.
second by Wethel.
Got a motion by Roussel, got a second by Sprank. First, Ms. Wethel. The airwaves were a little slower, I think. So, and I saw Krenna nodding that we did that correctly. All right, Trish, take a roll, please.
Staver,
aye.
Leindecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. All right, the Long Range Planning Advisory Commission is our last one where I think we're going to need a roll call here. So here we have 2 3-year terms through July 2029, and we have 3 applicants, Aaron Higgins, Carolyn Kelly, and Mark Ward. So one more roll call, please, Trish.
Staver,
Kelly,
Leindecker,
Higgins?
Sprank,
Higgins.
Wethel,
Kelly,
Resnick,
Aaron Higgins,
Kavanaugh,
Aaron Higgins.
Roussel.
Carolyn Kelly.
All right, so in that case, Aaron Higgins had 4 votes. Carolyn Kelly had 3. So we have Aaron Higgins appointed to the first term. Second roll call, please, Trish.
Staver,
Kelly,
Leindecker,
Ward?
Sprank,
Ward.
Wethel,
Ward,
Resnick,
Mark Ward,
Kavanaugh,
Mark Ward.
Roussel.
Mark Ward.
All right, so Mark Ward is appointed to the second term on the Long Range Planning Advisory Commission. All right, 2 left here. Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, 2 3-year terms through June 30th, 2029, and 2 applicants, Ron Axtell and Robin Kennecker. I will entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
a motion that we appoint Ron Axtell and Robin Kinnegar to their 3-year terms on the Park and Rec Advisory Commission.
Second.
Got a motion by Sprank, second by Roussel. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. Final appointment of the evening, Zoning Advisory Commission, 1 3-year term through 2029, and 1 applicant, Jake Koch. May I take a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
I
Resnick.
move that Jay Koch is, I move that he gets one 3-year term on the Zoning Advisory Commission through July 1st, 2029.
Second by Leyendecker.
Motion by Resnick, second by Leyendecker. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. So first of all, thank you, council members, for working our way through that. It's never easy when we have that many, so I appreciate everyone's patience. And secondly, I want to thank everybody who is who applied in this case for the open positions. Anyone who wasn't appointed, please do continue to show your interest, continue to apply. It's difficult at times to make these choices because we have to choose somebody when we do choose, but we do really sincerely appreciate so many people stepping up. It is great to have the volunteer voices that we have on our boards and commissions, so thank you very much to everyone. All right, we can move on, Trish.
Next on the agenda are public hearings. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the public hearing items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for the public hearing you would like to speak to, and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for the public hearing you would like to speak to. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order. Public hearing number 1, Greater Dubuque Improvement Investment Fund Development Agreement, 455 East 15th Street.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Sprank.
All right, got a motion by Resnick and a second by Sprank. Krana, please.
Economic Development Director Jill Connors is recommending City Council adopt the attached resolution approving the attached development agreement by and between the City of Dubuque and the Greater Dubuque Impact Investment Fund for the redevelopment and sale of the property at 455 East 15th Street in Dubuque. The proposed development agreement includes the following. 1. Developer will purchase approximately 0.71 acres at 455 East 15th Street for $151,300 to be offset by a land acquisition grant of the same amount contingent upon the construction of the improvements required by the development agreement. 2. Developer will construct community health and related office facilities to be operated by a nonprofit healthcare provider for a total estimated cost of $5 million. 3, developer will begin construction on or before October 1, 2027, and shall be substantially complete by April 1, 2031. This timeline allows for an anticipated 12 to 18-month environmental assessment and mitigation process ahead of the construction. And 4, if the property is subject to real property taxes, the city will provide 10 years of tax increment financing rebates. If the property qualifies for exemption as a nonprofit use, the developer is eligible to apply for that exemption. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
All right, thank you, Krana. Well, we're in a public hearing to consider a development agreement with the Greater Dubuque Impact Investment Fund for the development and sale of property at 455 East 15th Street. Do we have anyone here in chambers to address us on this item this evening? Seeing no one here, anyone virtually?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll bring it back to the table, and I'll start by saying that I'm actually going to choose to abstain on this item. This doesn't specifically mention Crescent Community Health Center, but it's obvious that there's a lot of conversation about Crescent Community Health Center being the recipient of this once this property is moved over. My wife has a role at Crescent Community Health Center, and I just don't think it would be appropriate for me to vote on this one. So I'm going to abstain from any discussion or debate. I will moderate the discussion and just call on people, but I'll abstain from any discussion or debate and abstain from voting, please. Ms. Roussel?
Thank you. I just think it's very exciting to see development at this location and to be able to expand the health services for those in need in our community, and it just sounds like a great project.
Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to agree with that wholeheartedly. It's just such a worthy project, and it's going to be so good for our residents here. Again, there's a lot that goes into this, a lot of people to thank so far, and the work has just begun. So I look forward to supporting this as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any others? All right. Motion here is to receive and file and adopt this resolution. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes with 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
Public hearing number 2, Municipal Service Center Roof and HVAC Replacement Project.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Wethel.
Motion by Roussel, second by Wethel. Corey, please.
Assistant Public Works Director and Project Manager Max O'Brien is recommending City Council approve the plans, specifications, form of contract, and construction estimate of $3,600,300 for the Municipal Services Center Roof and HVAC Replacement Project through the adoption of the attached resolution. The estimate of probable cost for the Municipal Services Center Roof and HVAC Replacement Project is summarized as follows. Construction estimated at $3,600,300. Engineering and Construction Administration estimated at $91,820 for a total project cost of $3,692,120. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Corey. We're in a public hearing to consider Municipal Services Center Roof and HVAC Replacement Project. Do we have any public input on this item? Seeing none here. Anything
No.
virtually? All right, back to us for any discussion then. Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the funding, the funds are coming from our own capital budget. Is that where this is coming from? Do we have any grants or how is this being financed?
Public Works Director Ariel Swift speaking. So yes, this would come from current CIP budgeting. HVAC and the roof were both budgeted, but with the PVC type material that's going to be put on the roof and the oil that goes into that, we did see an increase in estimated costs, but there have been other savings and other projects that we've identified to help cover. Now, this is just based on the estimate. We'll be able to give more concrete numbers on where we would be able to pull those or if we need to do some sort of budget adjustment through that process at a later date once those bids come back.
I see. Thank you. It's all, I enjoy looking at the numbers here and the estimate of what we have here as $3,600,300. I don't know how the $300 got in there, but I'm sure it's you put it all together. I'm sure there's a sheet somewhere that has all the individual things to add up.
Yes, so that estimate came from Origin, who is the contracted engineer for the project.
Okay, great. And then, so we haven't put it out to bid or anything?
Correct, not yet.
Okay, so this is just starting. And we're hoping to finish it this season? Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ariel. Okay, motion here is to receive and file and then adopt this resolution. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Moving on to public input. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting may address the council on an action item on the agenda or on matters under the control of the city council. For all in-person attendees, please approach the podium and state your name and address when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order. Individual remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and the overall public input is limited to 30 minutes. Under Iowa open meeting law, the city council can take no formal action on comments given during public input or that do not relate to the action items on the agenda.
All right, thank you, Trish. All right, this is a moment for public input this evening, so we'd welcome any public input that there is. I'm seeing none here so far. Okay. Oh, yeah, please, come on up.
Good evening, City Council members. I'm just here as a concerned citizen with this data center coming into the Dubuque area. This data center will affect a lot of homes, more cancer into the environment. It's going to put my house at a zero. I will not receive any money out of my home if I ever try to sell it, because when I open up my front windows, there is a data center right there. I'm worried about the water intake. It's going to affect my wells, so I'm not going to have that drinking water, I feel. The electricity currents that's going to be out there. I lost my husband 8 years ago to brain cancer, and I'm just concerned. We have had lost 3 people so far on our road with brain cancer or other cancer due to, we feel that it's the power energy that's out there right now that Alliant and ITC have at this moment. So I'm just going to voice my concerns and sleepless nights, worried what's going to happen. And I feel that our farmlands are very well needed because our farmers out that way are concerned that their cows drink out of the streams of the water in the area. And how do you tell your cattle you can't drink the water out of the streams if you got this bad water going in there? And I feel for a lot of our people out there on the south end and the farmers and my grandchildren who, you know, you go to breathe in that air and stuff. You know, I'm scared for their concerns and the future of any people out that way. So I hope the city can take it into consideration if it ever comes to be approached to you people, to really look at our needs and our concerns, because we moved out there to listen to the beauty of the birds and the nature, the sounds, and if this big data center comes into our community, we're not going to have that anymore. So I'm just a concerned person, and I'm here to speak for some of our people on the south end. So I will leave it at that.
Okay. We need name and address, too, if we could,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's Kim Mangers, and I'm at 9421 Laudville Road, and that's Dubuque.
All right. Thank you, Kim,
Thank
for
you.
your comments. Other folks this evening? And the desk does move. If it's easier for you to see us, I know, I always want to mention, but Wally's going to come help you real quick. There's a little button there that actually moves the desk, so Wally's right behind you.
That moves it all the time.
Yeah, it's usually Wally's fault that it's pretty high, so. Thank you, Wally.
My name is Mary Beth Decker, and I live at 9111 Laudville Road, Dubuque, Iowa. I'm here with Kim, basically, and we do have a lot of concerns out there. And I want to read you a little bit of what my concerns are. And I ask you this question: what you value in life, money or good health, preserving our farmland, clean air, affordable water and electricity, reasonable property taxes, and safe drinkable water? Do you value being able to sit outside and enjoy the quiet beauty of our countryside? We have all experienced changes in our lives. Some have made life better, while others have left us with regrets. Bringing large-scale data centers to Dubuque and the cities around them will change our community. Once the first shovel of dirt is turned, many of those changes may never be reversed. Without accountability, we risk losing some of the things that make this area special. Farmland could disappear. Traffic could increase. Noise may replace the peace and quiet many of us enjoy. Families may no longer feel comfortable taking a serene walk down a country road. People may find it harder to sit in their own yards, listen to birds, watch wildlife, and enjoy the beauty that surrounds them. There are also concerns about increased demands on water and electricity, rising costs, and potential impacts on quality and public health. While data centers may increase tax revenues for our cities and counties, economical growth should not come at the expense of our values and quality of life. So I ask you again, what do you value? Money or making the right decision? Let us make the data centers accountable to protect what makes Dubuque County and the city special so that future generations can enjoy it. And so we are not left with regrets we must live with tomorrow. These are the concerns from the citizens of Dubuque County and surrounding cities. We would like to be involved in the future of making decisions on this, and we also ask you to please be aware and take these into account when talking about anything relating to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth, for your comments. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for that public input. Anyone virtually?
There's not.
Nothing? Okay. All right, we can move on to action items, please.
Next are action items. Action item number 1, fiscal year end June 30th, 2025, annual comprehensive financial report.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and view the presentation.
Second by Sprank.
Motion by Resnick, second by Sprank. Coming to.
Yep, come
Corey,
to me
go ahead.
first. Chief Financial Officer Jennifer Larson and Finance Manager Brian DeMoss are transmitting the fiscal year 2025 annual comprehensive financial report. The city's independent auditor issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, and Finance Manager Brian DeMoss and our auditing firm Malden and Jenkins will make a presentation and answer questions.
Once it comes up.
I think it's booting up. Yeah, there we go.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Brian DeMoss, Finance Manager from the Finance Department, and I'm here to discuss the 2025 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So when we're looking at this report, we want to look at what is an audit and what does it provide. An audit is an exam and verification of the city's financial records, processes, and accounts. Specifically, the statements presented in the ACFR. So those include the government-wide statements, fund statements, and a whole lot of other information included as well. As it shows on the screen, it's to ensure that local government is in compliance with all applicable legal provisions as well. Some of the benefits: it provides a professional opinion on the statements themselves and the financial condition of the city. It provides reliable financial information to various users of the financial statements. One specific example is our people that purchase our bonds annually. They definitely review the report. The auditors will also provide recommendations to strengthen our management and our efficiency if they do see something that we could improve, and it ensures compliance with legal provisions as well. So the second piece of the audit, there's a financial audit, which looks at the statements. There's a compliance audit. The auditors also perform this. It is for compliance with various legal provisions, with grants and financial operations as well. So our audit results. David Irwin is on the phone, and he's going to talk about the audit results.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is David Irwin, and I'm with Malden Jenkins. I was the partner who oversaw this year's audit of the city's financial statements, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all this evening to discuss the results of this year's audit. Again, as Brian mentioned, he'll be discussing some of the financial statement highlights, so I certainly don't want to steal any of his thunder. But what I wanted to do is to provide you all an overview of our independent auditor's report, talk about the results of the 2 compliance reports that we issue in conjunction with the audit, discuss some information that the auditing standards requires that we communicate to you all, and then last but not least, to answer any questions that you all may have. Now, the financial statements themselves, they are the responsibility of management and members of council. As your independent auditors, our responsibility is to express an opinion on these statements. We conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. And again, I'm happy to say that we are issuing a clean or unmodified opinion on this year's report. This is what you want. This is the highest level of assurance that we can provide your external auditor. What this means is that, in our opinion, the financial statements are considered to be fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And, more importantly, if I'm in your shoes, this report provides council and management confidence that the financial information presented in these financial statements can be used as a reliable basis for informed decision-making. Again, as I mentioned earlier, as part of the audit, there are 2 compliance reports that we also issue. The first of which is the single audit report. Again, a single audit is a compliance audit that is required when an entity spends over $750,000 in federal funds during the year. The city had around $41 million in federal expenditures in FY25. As was the case with the financial audit, we are issuing a clean or unmodified opinion on the single audit as well. The second compliance report that we issue is called the Yellow Book Report. And this report evaluates the city's internal controls and your compliance with various laws and regulations. And again, very good news here. We noted no audit findings. So therefore, there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses identified during our audit procedures. And, given the volume of new accounting standards, reporting requirements, and really just the overall complexity involved in governmental financial reporting, achieving both a clean opinion and no audit findings, it reflects the city's commitment to sound financial management, strong processes, and effective preparation for the audit. And that's certainly something that council and management should be proud of and should be commended for. And I do want to take a moment to thank management and staff for all their hard work again this year. When you look at your financial statements, they're 200 pages long. So needless to say, there's a tremendous amount of time and effort involved in the audit process. But your staff, they were extremely responsive, and accommodating throughout the audit process. They worked hard to address all of our questions and get us the necessary information needed to get the audit finalized. So we really appreciate their hard work again this year. One final item, just to briefly mention, is certain information that the auditing standards requires that we communicate to you all. In addition to the clean opinion, no audit findings that I mentioned earlier, we receive full cooperation from management and staff. There were no disagreements with management on any accounting issues or financial reporting matters. There were no significant issues discussed with management that would have affected the financial statements. There were no uncorrected misstatements. And again, we are independent of the city as required by government auditing standards. And our independence is what gives this report credibility. If we weren't independent, the opinion in this report wouldn't matter. And with that, I'll pass it along to Brian to discuss the financial statements in more detail. I'll certainly stick around to answer any questions that you all may have. But again, thank you all for the opportunity to be of service to the city. And we look forward to working with you all next year.
All right. As we can continue, when we look at the annual certified.
Hey, Brian, could you go a little closer to the mic there? We're having a little trouble hearing you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Okay. So when we look at the ACFR report, as David mentioned, it's 200 plus pages. So there is a lot of information there in the report. So these are the key sections, and we're going to highlight some of them later on in this presentation. So we have the introduction, Next up is the financial information, which includes the auditor's report that we just discussed, the management discussion and analysis, the government-wide financial statements, the fund statements, the notes to the financial statements, supplementary information, the stats section, and the compliance section. So 2 of those items have asterisks next to them, because in my opinion, if someone was going to pick up the report and say, what should I look at? Those are the 2 sections that I would say you would want to look at, is the management discussion and analysis and the notes to the financial statements. So in the management discussion analysis, it's a discussion of the city's financial performances during the fiscal year. And so some highlights of the financial information include net position increased to approximately $773 million for all city funds. The business type revenues increased by approximately $10 million. Governmental expenses increased by $5.8 million, and that was because of additional development costs, street maintenance costs, and additional employee costs. After that, there's an overview of the financial statements. So this includes fund information, debt information, budget information, et cetera. Next up are the financial statements. So the first couple are the government-wide statements. So this is a broad overview of city finances split between governmental funds and enterprise funds. These are all listed using the full accrual accounting, meaning that long-term debt and capital assets are included in governmental funds. Next, we have our fund statements. So in those governmental funds, it's on the modified accrual basis, which means it does not include certain long-term items, including fixed assets and long-term debt. These include the general fund, debt service fund, and capital project funds. The next set of statements are the enterprise funds, which are the same as government-wide. They're full accrual, so they include long-term debt, fixed assets, and those funds are sewer, water, and stormwater, et cetera. So when we look at just the general fund is the main operating fund outside of the enterprise funds for the city. So our unassigned fund balance was 42.9% of general fund expenditures. Revenues increased in fiscal year 25, and this was specifically related to interest income and charges for services. Expenses also increased related to capital assets. So the next section we want to kind of look at is the notes to the financial statement. As I mentioned before, this is one of the key areas if you were going to look at the entire report to really focus in on. This provides details and discussion of each financial statement line item. So if you wanted to know more about cash or debt or fixed assets, you would go to the notes and it would provide a lot of information for you. Within the notes, there are several key notes, which include Note 1, which outlines the city's accounting policies and processes and how we kind of put this whole report together and how we do different things. 2 other ones, as I've talked about a little bit, are Note 6, which is capital assets. So that includes all of our equipment, building, and infrastructure that we have here at the city. And then Note 7 includes long-term debt. So it provides a breakdown of each type of long-term debt and the overall balances of that debt. And lastly, in the back of the report is the compliance section. As David mentioned, within that, our auditor's report were clean audit reports included in there. As David mentioned, the schedule of federal awards, which gives a detailed listing of federal dollars spent by grant, and then other findings, which is findings and information related to the state compliance audit as well. So lastly, I need to give a big thank you to everyone that assists with this report. It's not just the finance department. It's all departments contribute in different ways, provide us information. So we're really thankful for that. In addition, I want to thank some individual people from our department. This year, Nathan Kelleher and Caitlin Heiderscheit have been a great asset to this process, so I want to thank them individually. And then the department as a whole this is a big team effort, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Brian. Now, and also David, thank you for your comments there during the presentation. Let me just also say thanks to everybody. I think that anytime you go through an audit every single year, it's a big undertaking, and I think we recognize that. But none of us that aren't really in it really know the time and effort that goes into it. So thank you for that and all you're doing with that. I think I want to open with a question, and David, this is going to be for you, I think. So one of the, first of all, I can appreciate that this is a clean audit. Sounds like, we had no issues or anything like that working with staff. But one of the things that came up during our budget hearings was some concerns from community members about administrative overhead charges. And I was curious from your perspective, if you can provide us with any perspective from your view as the auditor, in terms of what that means for. I heard the term accounting policies and practices, for instance, throughout this discussion, and just in terms of accounting policies and practices. I mean, is this something that did you recognize any red flags or concerns that you have about any of that administrative overhead charge practice that we have as a city, or I guess any insight you can provide to us would be helpful for us.
Sure, yeah. Our firm audits 800 governments throughout the country, and every government allocates share costs differently. There's no single GASB standard that requires one specific allocation methodology. Common allocation methods that we typically see could be direct labor hours, number of transactions processed, utility customers served, budget size, operating expenditures, fixed percentage allocations, or a hybrid approach using multiple allocation bases. Many governments use a simplified allocation methodology because it's practical, it's understandable, and it can be consistently applied from year to year. The methodology used is fundamentally a management and governance decision. Our role as your auditor is not necessarily to determine the optimal allocation method, but rather to evaluate whether the resulting financial information is, again, fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So again, to answer your question, there was nothing that we saw during the course of the audit that raised any concerns based on how you all are allocating this cost.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I'll open it up to everybody else for discussion. Mr. Staver?
I guess the way you answered that question makes me wonder. So it sounds more like you don't evaluate the legal, I guess, the legality of the policy that we have. More so you evaluate whether it was legally presented, the information, or the numbers were presented, not the process. Am I asking that right? Or does that make sense?
We certainly evaluate the legality of it.
Of the process or the
part of our procedures, we test the calculation and we evaluate the reasonableness. As far as testing the calculation, typical procedures that we do, we recalculate the allocation, we test the mathematical accuracy, we verify those amounts charged to make sure that they agree to the underlying accounting records, and we also test the consistency from year to year. From a standpoint of reasonableness, we don't test whether it's perfect. There's no perfect audit. That's not what an audit does. But we evaluate whether it's reasonable, it's supported, and it's consistently applied. So from an audit standpoint, the audit question is, do these allocations cause the financial statements to be materially misstated, which it does not. We don't answer the question of would another allocation model be better. So again, like I said earlier, we see all kinds of different allocation methods, and the method that you all use, we see that with numerous governments that we audit.
I guess I'm still a little unclear. again, so the actual process, how we came up with the number, I mean, we can feel confident that the process we used is legal as well. Because kind of to Brad's point, there was kind of a couple people that mentioned they saw some issue there, and Brenner wasn't here at the time, so.
David, we're going to our city attorney for the answer to that question, quick.
So, as David mentioned, there is no particular GASB standard, and that's the acronym Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Okay. So there is no standard that says this is how governments have to do it. So my understanding of what David is saying and my understanding of the legal framework for this is there is not a specific requirement that we do it in one particular way, and that the way we are doing it is within the accounting auditing standards that they see all across the country, auditing 800 plus governmental units. We believe that it is defensible, and I believe what I understood David to say there is that they test that framework that we use, choosing the option that we have currently, for its reasonableness and making sure that we are properly documenting and accounting for it. And I believe what he's saying is that math adds up. But from a legal standpoint, we do believe that it is authorized, and there's nothing that prohibits us using the way we currently do it.
I guess, so during the comments that were made that Brad was referencing, you know, it felt like the question was how we got to those, or are we checking all the boxes in terms of our legal obligations to get to the numbers? I guess it feels like he's saying the numbers don't pose a legal issue, but how we came up with them. Do they audit the process, or they just audit the numbers? And you make sure our process is legal, and then.
Correct. I mean, we've deemed we see no legal issue with the process. So, from a financial audit standpoint, we're then looking at the numbers to make sure that, again, we verify that those amounts charged agree to the accounting records and is consistent from year to year, as well as, again, testing mathematical accuracy and recalculating those allocations.
And so if there's still a question of whether you, for example, wanted to consider other options, you do have that. I think there would be a number of different ways that could legally be done, and that would be a decision for you as the body would have to make.
Yeah, no,
correct.
I understand that. You know, I just, like I said, there was a little bit of a question there, and you weren't here, and I thought, yeah. If I'm understanding it right, it seems like he's making sure the numbers match the percentages we set, but how we came up with those numbers or those percentages we want to use is kind of on a different vein, so to speak, that we have to analyze ourselves. So a clean audit.
Yeah. The method that you all use, determined to use, is a management decision and a governance decision.
Okay. So the percentages we set, you're saying it's clean in that the numbers all line up with the numbers we said they should line up with. There's no red flags in that way.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David.
And again, reasonable professionals can disagree regarding the most appropriate allocation methodology, which sounds like that's the issue here at this point. But as your external auditors, our job is just to make sure that the method that you chose is appropriate. And again, we do our audit procedures based on the allocation method that management and council have chosen to use.
All right. Any others? Mr. Landick?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. A few questions here. The airport construction fund on page 74 of the audit, in those dollars that are unallocated at this point, is that, or I guess a couple things is, one is, and I see the footnote that we'll have to take that up at the next budgeting discussion. But are those, is that liability there? Is that attributed to the runway construction that's occurring, and we anticipate to get funds from the federal government, or how does that? What do we know what that's attributed to?
We're looking it up, David. Jenny's looking it
Yeah,
up here.
Okay.
Just to confirm, you're looking at the 773,000?
No, it's note 2 on top of page 74, the deficient fund balance and deficient fund net position. It says airport construction fund, 2,342,146.
It's got a page number 68 at the bottom.
Yeah, yep, okay. So based on the statements, that is related to items. Sorry, this isn't the best way to look at it. In general, it's all related about timing, related to payables, and the amount of dollars coming back to the city related to grants. So you mentioned the taxiway project. That is a project that is funded through grants. So if we don't receive those dollars within 60 days, it doesn't show up in our revenue. It shows up as a deferral, which will then which will result in that negative fund balance. So eventually that will flip. We'll receive the revenue, or et cetera.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And that's what I was kind of anticipating. I didn't see that noted in the footnote here. And so, especially when we're looking at deficits and how we're going to cover some of these deficits, I think it would, maybe it's more for David, but I think it would be helpful to have those allocations or indication of those allocations just versus just a transfer to the fund. We can move on though. The other question I had for David was, David, I didn't see anything really in here. Maybe I probably missed it, given it's 210 pages, but about controls, just overall testing of controls, and you felt like they were appropriate?
Yes. We during the audit, we noted no internal control issues. Again, as I mentioned earlier, any such issues would have come up as either a material weakness or a significant deficiency in your controls, and we noted none this year.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question was, starting on page 108 of the PDF or 102 of the actual audit report, with the pension liability, there's quite a number of pages about the pension liability, but the net pension liability totals 42.6 million. Of that, is our pension liability funded, or is there a percentage that's unfunded?
So with the pension liability, it all comes back to either IPERS or municipal fire and police. So when we record that liability, it's a percentage of the entire liability related to those two entities. So we're not necessarily funding that directly because that's IPERS and municipal fire and police's obligation to fund. But according to GASB, we have to record that as our own liability. So we don't necessarily control the actual funding side of that equation.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Good?
Yep.
All right. All right, any other questions or discussion on this item before we move on? Okay. Well, David, thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it. Brian, Jenny, thank you for your assistance with this too. All right, motion here is to receive and file and then hear that presentation we just heard. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 2 is Asbury, Carter, and Cheney Traffic Signal Project Award.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Leyendecker.
Motion by Resnick, second by Leyendecker. Corey, please.
City Engineer Gus Hoyas is recommending City Council adopt the resolution awarding the public improvement construction contract for the Asbury, Carter, and Cheney Traffic Signal Improvement Project to Ports and Construction in the amount of $348,287.98, which is 17% above the estimate of probable cause. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Corey. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All right, motion here is to receive and file, adopt the resolution. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 3 is the North Schmidt Island Collection System Project Contract Number 2 Award.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
a motion that we receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Leyendecker.
Motion by Sprank, second by Leyendecker. Corey, please.
City Engineer Gus Hoyas is recommending City Council adopt the resolution awarding the public improvement construction contract for the North Schmidt Island Collection System Project, Contract Number 2, to Chick-fil-A Excavation Company in the amount of $225,133.80, which is 45% above the estimate of probable cause. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Scott, thank you, Corey. Discussion. Mr. Sprank.
I know we got to do this, but boy, how did we get these costs that far off on that? That's a whopping lot. So
Gus is on his way to describe.
yes.
Good evening, Gus Sohoya, City Engineer. We had two bids on the project. They were pretty comparable, 225 and 243. I think a lot of it had to do with the timetable that we were allotting the contractor. They had like a 2-week window between now and the first festival. Want to get this work done, and construction costs are real expensive right now. All the materials have gone up substantially the last 4 or 5 years, and we've probably underestimated it, the cost for the materials.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, just real quick, and I'll mention, we have a number of action items that are over the estimates, but then later, we actually have a few that are under the estimate too, and I think that we're kind of bouncing back and forth. I do have to agree, All right, well, you didn't really make this point, Gus, but I'll say that I think it's really important that we get this done within the time that we need to get it done because of the fact that we have things going on Schmidt Island that they have a timeline to them. I mean, we can't just delay the entire summer to get those things done. So yeah, it is unfortunate that it's this far over the estimate, but I also think that it is at times, especially times like right now, there are moments where it's sort of the cost of doing business where we have to look at the ways we're saving money in other places too. So I think I will commend Gus, you and your team. I mean, I think you're doing your best to come up with the right amount, but this was a difficult one to estimate based on the timeline.
It's tough to estimate a sewer project, and it's the availability of the contractors. Everything makes a big difference. Sometimes we have 10 or 12 bidders. Sometimes we have 2 bidders. But the fact that they're pretty close, they're within $25,000 of each other, we think we probably got the best price we can based on the circumstances.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
You answered my question.
All right.
You answered it, so did you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. We have any others?
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Gus. Appreciate it. All right, motion here is to receive and file and adopt the resolution. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 4 is Southwest Arterial US 52 ITS Corridor Project Award.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second?
Motion by Roussel, second by Resnick. Corey, please.
City Engineer Gus Ahoyas is recommending City Council award the public improvement construction contract for the Southwest Arterial US 52 ITS Corridor Project to Eastern Iowa Directional Drillers LLC in the amount of $1,593,173.08 through adoption of the attached resolution. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Corey. Any discussion on this one? Mr. Resnick.
Does it say how it compares with the estimate?
11%.
11% below based on the staff memo that we received.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
All right. Hearing no other discussion, motion here is to receive and file and adopt the resolution. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 5 is Greyhound Park Road Water Main Loop Project Award Construction Contract.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Sprank.
Motion by Resnick, second by Sprank. Corey, please.
Water Department Director Christopher Lester is recommending City Council adopt the resolution awarding the Greyhound Park Road Water Main Loop Project contract to Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete LLC of Cascade, Iowa in the amount of $204,993.75, which is 29.5% lower than the estimate. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Corey. Any discussion? All right. Motion here is to receive and file and adopt the resolution. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 6 is off-premise sign regulations moratorium extension ordinance amendment.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file, and further move that the requirement that a proposed ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended.
Second by Sprank.
Motion by Roussel, second by Sprank. Corey, please.
Planning Services Director Wally Warnemont is recommending City Council approval to extend the temporary building permit moratorium until January 31st, 2027. This extension will provide additional time to complete the review and update of the unit development, ensuring that proper changes are thorough and reflect community feedback. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Corey. Discussion on this one. Yeah, Mr. Staver.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this last time we extended this. I mean, we're coming up on 2 years that we've pretty much shut this whole industry down from expanding anywhere. From the insight I have from, I guess, talking to one person in that industry, I mean, their opinion is that we have pretty tight standards as it is. I think to hold up a whole industry like this, another additional 6 months, I think, we owe it to them to maybe push this one, figure this one out before the rest of the UDC and get these guys back in business. Is there any way that could be done to look at this specific code and update it?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Wally Worma, Planning Services Director. So with regards to the off-premise residential signs, so we did a lot of survey work, information that came back with that. The discussion points with the billboard locations is currently our current code allows separation between billboards 500 feet on non-primary highways and 750 on primary highways, which would be like US Street, Dodge Street, Highway 52. We also have some sign corridors, specifically along our freeway corridors, scenic byways are associated with it. So some of the feedback that we received with regards to it is separation from schools and cemeteries and parks and other cultural sensitive areas. Currently, right now, we only have it from our historic districts, 100 feet with regards to that. So we could look at moving that one forward and having that conversation. What we're hoping is when we take through the Unified Development Code and we have that broader conversation, discussion, that we'd have more opportunities for it, but we could take that specific portion through. We would amend it for the current Unified Development Code, and then we would just incorporate those regulations in the total update. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
We just talked about, updating the historic preservation ordinance with regards to the demolition permits. That's something we can move forward specifically on it to get this one moving on a little bit further, if that is something that the city council chooses to do so.
Well, I think since we keep extending it, it suggests we never intended to hold them up this long in the first place.
Yeah. The sign portion is very comprehensive. We're looking at a complete rewrite of our entire sign ordinance. But just the very specific portion with the billboards, we can definitely have those conversations and move it forward on that. So we have received some inquiries from the billboard industries. It's for new billboard locations, so we did have a request for an existing billboard to be replaced. It met the separation requirements. They were allowed to do so. This would just be for new placement of billboards that meet those requirements, so.
Could that be done by the date that it's?
So what we would look at doing is we would take the information, we'd meet as a staff, we would discuss it, we'd provide it to the consultant, and then we'd bring it before the Zoning Advisory Commission as part of a public hearing, but then we'd want to have a public engagement session with all the sign contractors, the billboard industries, and the public to be able to review that ordinance before we bring it before the city council. So it's probably a 2-month process to do that.
So we're not going to meet July 1st for sure.
Before July 1st?
Yeah. Because that's what it's extended to currently, right?
Yeah, currently, yeah. That's, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other discussion? I'm going to come back to Mr. Staver's point here. Anybody else? Yeah, Ms. Russell.
I would be in support of trying to get this moving forward to reduce the impact on our businesses so that they can keep moving forward.
What date? You've suggested a date to us already, Wally, which is January 1st.
For the extension, yeah.
Yeah, and was that suggestion based on when you're, I mean, we've kind of talked about the Unified Development Code.
Yeah.
That suggestion is based on you lumping this in with the Unified Development Code.
The
change.
entire code,
Right,
yes.
right.
Yep.
So what you're saying, to Mr. Staver's point, is that you could potentially work on this portion of it more quickly.
Yes.
And do something faster than wait till January 1st.
Yeah.
So if you were to give us a date, What would that be? We might not agree.
It'd be
but-
like 2 months. So,
Months.
so we'd look at doing a text amendment. We'd want to do the outreach to the sign industry, this just specifically about billboards, portion of it.
Yeah.
And then we have to take the zoning advisory commission for the public hearing, and there'll be a text amendment that come before the city council. So, the zoning advisory commission meets the first Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
We won't make that July deadline, so we're going to be pushed off into the August. So it'll be August, and then after August, then it would go on to the second meeting in city council in August. So that second city council meeting date in August is when would be the earliest. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
Greta?
I was just going to say that if the direction provided to staff is to bring this back quicker, you could do the moratorium ordinance as is, and when they bring that back to you for adoption, we could do a repeal of the moratorium at that time, so it would go away whatever date they adopt the new one or the updated version. So we could essentially make those things happen back to back as almost simultaneously as we could.
We could do that, but we could also amend the motion and set a different date
Correct.
to have this go through. But I want to make sure that if we do that, that we're identifying the right dates and we don't end up having to do this all over again for like a 2-week, you know what I'm saying? So my suggestion might be, and you tell me if I'm way off, but what about September, the first meeting in September as the moratorium date? Or like September 1st even as the moratorium date. And then that way it gives us just enough wiggle room, something happens. But the intention here, clearly, which has been broadcast, is to get it back to us in that second meeting in August so that we can actually have a discussion then and move on from that point. Is that, Wally, you're,
That's correct.
okay. Granted, that would work, okay.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Resnick.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable with a second meeting in September, give them a full month. I mean, we're still cutting it in half, which is great. I appreciate the all hands on deck for this. But, I mean, I suppose if it's not ready, we could extend it for 1 more month, if that's what you're saying. But, I mean, they intend to bring it to us in 2 months, and I appreciate that. Should we put in a month cushion, because in real life, everything doesn't go perfectly. So just something to consider. Thank you.
So your suggestion is actually the second meeting of September, is that what you said?
That is my suggestion, at least for discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Which, according to the calendar, would be the 21st?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right,
The 20
21st of September. Mr. Staver, is that, I see you shaking your head, that would work for you, okay, yeah. I think there's general agreement here, and Wally, thank you for making the offer. I think that, I know it's extra work, but at the same time, it has been extended. This has been a long one. So it makes sense to try and work a little more quickly if we could. So I appreciate your offer to do so, yeah. So Ms. Roussel, you made the motion, if you'd care to amend it.
Okay, so I move to receive and file and amend the motion to state the deadline as September 21st, 2026, and move that the requirement that the proposed ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended.
A second.
Okay, so you got a motion by Roussel, second by Sprank. Krenna, that is appropriate. We're within the legal bounds to be able to do that, so the new date would not be that January date, but would actually be September 21st. Okay, thanks for that discussion. Thanks again, Wally, and thank you, Krenna. All right, motion here is to receive and file and waive the 3 readings. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel?
I move final consideration and passage of the ordinance.
Second by Spring.
Motion by Roussel, second by Sprank. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leyendecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 7, request to continue fire cost recovery ordinance to city council meeting in July.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel?
I move to receive and file and approve.
Second.
A motion by Roussel and a second by Resnick. Krenna, is this you?
Yep.
Okay.
As you know, a proposed fire cost recovery ordinance appeared on your agenda on May 18th, and there were a lot of questions and concerns about the ordinance as it was presented at that time, how it would be implemented. And so direction was given back to staff on how to address those issues and come back with a revised version. Staff has made significant progress on this, but the contract with the vendor also has to be amended to account for the ordinance changes, and we're still working through that. There was a meeting actually this morning where they were continuing to work on that. So we're asking for just a little more time, and we're being a little less specific, saying that we will bring it back to you at one of your July meetings, depending on how the negotiations on the contract go. So that's what I am asking for tonight.
I think it's a very realistic and fair ask, so thank you for your work on it and everyone who's working on it. Any further discussion? All right. Motion here is to receive and file and approve that. So Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver,
Aye.
Leindecker,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick, Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 8 is City Manager Executive Recruitment Services Request for Proposal Draft.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file, approve, and discuss it among the council.
Second.
Got a motion by Resnick and a second by Roussel. Okay, so we have, first of all, the RFP in front of us here to be able to move forward with approving that RFP as it is written tonight by our Human Resources team, Krenna included. And then the direction that is required of us right now is going down to the requested council direction. There's 4 different ideas here. We could either have a work session to be able to review the proposals that we get. We could have a special meeting to review the proposals and then take action. And then, because we can't take action during a work session, we could appoint a subcommittee of some sort, which would be to our choosing, is what I'm understanding. Or we could come up with some sort of alternative approach. Krenna, do you have any legal direction for us on this one, or any ideas or thoughts to share? That was kind of my first question for you.
The only thing I would say is that if you would have more flexibility if you did a subcommittee appointment, because obviously it would be a smaller group that would have flexibility for dates, times, and things like that.
Yep.
Whereas it's a little harder when it's the whole body, but that really is a personal preference and choice for
Right.
you all.
And the idea, if I'm not mistaken, would be a subcommittee to sort of whittle down the
proposals that come back in.
that come back. Just to have some sort of a idea that would be much clearer. Instead of, let's say we get 20 proposals. I mean, I don't know what we're going to get, but let's say we get 20. That does seem like an awfully arduous kind of special meeting for us to have. I mean, it would make sense to me if we had some sort of a committee to do that too. But I'm wide open on this one. I think I don't have a firm opinion.
And you would be able to include staff in that if you so chose.
Right, like our human resources staff, you or
Correct.
someone from your office, yeah. What do we think?
Could,
Yeah, Mr. Stitt, go ahead.
could we have a work session, and during that work session, if there was 20 of them, then decide to have a subcommittee if we so choose?
Yes.
So if there was less than, and we felt we could make an appropriate decision, we could.
Yes.
I feel like that would, I think it's such an important decision that I think having our hands on it from the beginning to the end would make sense.
Yep. Yeah, Mr. Lynick, go ahead.
Yeah, is, a couple of questions here. Would the special meeting, would that be a closed session, or is that open?
That would be open.
Okay.
Because this is just to evaluate the proposals and to decide, if you wanted to do interviews or things of that nature. It's possible that portions of it could happen in closed session if it met the qualifications, say being a confidential record or piece of information or something proprietary, but we wouldn't necessarily know that until we saw the proposals come back in.
Okay. And I did see there's a proposed rubrics, if you will, from a scoring standpoint. So the thought here to utilize that to kind of whittle down, if we got 20 or plus to a smaller group, and then we can interview top three or so, and then we could if one comes disqualified for some reason, we could always go to the next alternative?
Yeah, idea would be to essentially rank them, you know, so that you would have them, and then you could decide how many you wanted to move forward with.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. And so in your experience, I would say that, I would guess that many of these proposals, that we have a request for proposal, but many of these proposals are not going to cover everything that we ask for. And so there are some that need to be moved out right away because they do not fulfill, well, maybe I have that wrong. I just, in my experience, in that when I ask for certain things to be included in the paper, it's not always done that way.
So I think what you could expect from staff is that when they all come back in, there would be a first high-level review to determine whether they were responsive to your needs and the requirements listed. And we would attempt to flag those for you to draw attention to it, because I suspect there could also be people that may put other things in there that we have not thought about, right? That you may find to be something valid that you want included. But we would do a high level for that and would provide you that information.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Sell.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for getting this back to us so quickly. I think the idea of moving this process along quickly but effectively is really important. I like the idea of the rubric so that we can have consistent and transparent results. I prefer having a special meeting. Just like with any council meeting, you know, you get a lot of information ahead of time to read. And then be able to have a conversation with all of us. We could all look through this rubric and say, you know, come to the meeting with our ideas about, you know, this one meets my expectations, this one doesn't, you know, this one comes to the top, and be able to have that transparent conversation in the public setting so that we can quickly and efficiently and effectively pick the firm that's going to help us make this important decision. So I prefer the idea of a special meeting with all of us here, getting the information ahead of time so that we can come prepared to have a good discussion like we do at any council meeting. That would be my preference. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Sprang. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would echo the idea of a meeting because who knows how long it's going to go on for, and I would like to have as much time as available, not just, oh, we only have an hour for a work session, where it's like, we may need more than an hour, so.
Thank you. Ms. Wethel, I want to come to you, make sure I hear from you too.
Yes, I think on its surface, I would be in favor of the special meeting. My question for Council Brumwell would be, at that special meeting, would we then be able to review, discuss publicly, and vote? One concern I have is to ensure we are, as Councilmember Roussel said, just moving forward the process as efficiently but as informed as we possibly can. So at that special meeting, my question would be, would we be able to take action then at that meeting?
Yes, so when we prepare the agenda, we could prepare the agenda with possible actions for you to take. So for example, that could be directing staff to set up interviews with 3 consultants to interview, whether that's by the entire body or if you decided to have it be a smaller group. But we would include that in the agenda to be as responsive as we could to the timeline and to just keep it moving. So that way you wouldn't have to have another meeting to take the action. We would combine it all in one.
Thank you. Yes, I guess that is a piece of what we had discussed in reflection at our meeting when we said that we truly wanted to be involved at every level and have our fingers on each step of the process. I am in favor of not only holding a special meeting, but I believe moving forward, this decision, as impactful as it will be for the future of our city, I am in favor of having additional extra meetings as a council in order to ensure that we move this process forward efficiently, but also as a council, we are responsible for this hire. I take that very seriously, and I want to make sure that we do so informed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm hearing special meeting,
Yeah,
is what
me
I'm
too.
hearing, for sure. Am I correct that the date that we're looking at, it says the city will post all answers on page 6, right at the top. City will post all answers to questions by July 15th, 2026.
So so we would put the RFP out July 1. If we get any questions from those considering responding, we would put the questions back out for all who have received it by July 15th.
I see.
So that their deadline for submission to us would be July 22nd.
Okay.
2026 at 5 p.m. And we have listed in here a tentative professional service agreement being on your agenda August 3rd. That's aspirational, that has flexibility. Because as you look at our timeline, we say firm selection and contracting July to August of 2026. So it does not have to be set in stone by the first meeting in August. We would have flexibility between that July 22nd and the end of August to get a special meeting on your calendar to review,
Okay.
interview, and make a selection.
Okay. So more than likely, we'd be looking at a special meeting to really have this discussion sometime in August. Correct. Is what we're looking at. Okay, all right. So I think, normally when we do these special sessions, there are times where our executive assistant, Stephanie Valentine, can put the question out to council and test some dates for each of us. Rather than us sit here and do that with our calendars in front of everybody right now, how about we do that? We just have Stephanie test some dates, and then we can figure out what dates will look good in August to be able to have a special meeting, but we'll plan on an extra meeting in August for us to discuss these specifically. Does that work for everybody? Okay. All right. Great. Well, it seems like we are unified in this, so I don't believe there is anything further to discuss unless there's any concerns with the RFP itself. I didn't hear any, so we can put that out for, okay. All right, so that'll be free to send here based on this motion, which is to receive, file, and approve, and then get some direction on what we just decided for the special meeting. All right, with that then, Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver?
Aye.
Leyendecker?
Aye.
Sprank?
Hi.
Wethel?
Aye.
Resnick?
Aye.
Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Roussel?
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Moving on to council member reports.
It's not as late as it was last time, so if we've got any reports, still daylight out there, I see, so if there's any reports now, we can share them. Ms. Roussel?
Thanks. Well, of course, I'll start out with planting some trees at resident homes and schools through the Branching Out program. I've been working on the Hill Street Orchard, and it's been fun to see neighbors come and go and say hello and thank you. Have had meetings with Friends of Dubuque Parks, Dubuque Trees, Dubuque Main Street, attended Dubuque Pride Fest, and a church food giveaway. So it's been fun.
Great, thanks, Ms. Roussel. Other folks? Ms. Wethel, you have anything?
I'll move forward without, thank you.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate you to talk about our trips, first of all, your own trip, and then our trip to Washington DC.
Sure.
I think you'll do a great job.
All right, well, thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Leyendecker, go ahead. That's all
No,
right.
go ahead.
Same? Okay, all right. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a season of travel here for the last couple of weeks for me. So, yeah, sometimes travel overlaps. This doesn't happen very often, but in this case it did. In this case, it was actually on opposite ends of the country, so it was interesting. But the U.S. Conference of Mayors holds an annual meeting every June, and I did attend, as I always do. I think it's actually pretty simple. There are two things that the mayors of the United States are talking about. Data centers is one, and housing is the other. Actually, one of the presenters joked at one point asking somebody, what is your top issue, and tell us why it is housing. So, that it really is it's a discussion across the country, and everybody's dealing with it in different ways, at different phases. Large cities, small cities, everybody's talking about affordability of housing for people to live, still talking lots about homelessness and the challenges with that. Some cities dealing with that more than others. I think what I will say about that is what I learned when I went was that we have absolutely taken an appropriate focus on housing creation in the city of Dubuque. And I think our recent discussions of does that focus need to shift to talk more specifically about other types of housing or specific types of housing or even specific areas of the community, I don't think that's an inappropriate focus. I think our idea of shifting that based on our own personal needs is something that I heard a lot of other communities doing. So I think from a housing standpoint, we're right on track, and we need to keep thinking about it as we start to see lots of projects be completed, major projects that are going to, I think the chances of bringing more people to Dubuque are very, very real. So we need to be prepared for that, and I think we're on good footing to do so. So that's what I would say about that. The data center discussion is an absolutely national discussion. We had some comments on those tonight, which when public input is given and there's nothing on the agenda specifically, we can't really specifically talk about like a lot of things that you talked about. But what I will say in general is that almost every single community in the United States is dealing with this at the same time, once again, on very different places. One of the things that was a common thread that I heard was that the pushback in communities has gotten stronger in the last, I'm just going to say 6 months. It's just been something that has come up more often. It's not as accepted as easily right now, and for whatever reason that is, it just is. So that's the case. So I think I'm hearing a lot of communities say that they might be pausing or taking a moment to gather more information. I will say there are some communities that they went pretty fast and moved quickly on creating data centers, and in certain parts of the country, in fact. Virginia is one example, Texas is another example. Out west, Phoenix is another example. So there are places that have really they've built a lot of data centers and have sort of, I guess you could say, been the testing ground for this. And now other communities are catching up to the discussion and figuring out what it means for each of us. I think one of the things I heard from mayors is that everybody needs to decide what it means for them. That's really what it comes down to. You need to decide what it means for your own community. There's no one way to get this done. States are in different places. Just as a quick example, in Wisconsin, a lot of cities are starting to pass moratoriums, and one of the reasons I heard from Wisconsin mayors was that they're actually waiting for their state legislature to act, because their state legislature moved towards action and then stopped and didn't complete that. So went through some things in committee and then didn't keep going. So they're kind of waiting to see what guidance they get from the state before they move on. But that's Wisconsin, that's them. So I think everybody's in a little bit different place. So if that's just informational, I guess that's kind of what I'm providing there. Then I'll switch to our meeting in Washington, D.C. Thankfully, 4 of us were able to join and be there, and I'm glad that we did show up. 4 city council members, multiple city staff, multiple members of the business community, along with our Chamber of Commerce and Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. I thought these were great meetings. We have really strong partnerships in Washington, D.C. with our members of Congress and especially their staff who do the day-to-day work, but also with various different departments. We had a wonderful meeting with the Environmental Protection Agency about brownfield funding. And we talked a lot about brownfield funding with our congressional members too, because one of the items that was on the agenda tonight has to do with brownfield funding, cleaning up areas that need that cleanup to be able to develop. And one of the things that's a risk in Congress is that some of those funds might actually decrease. So we argued for that to not happen. We argued that those funds stay the same or increase. And it was received, so the message was received, and they heard what we had to do, and also heard some great stories of the things that Dubuque has accomplished for years with brownfield funding. The other thing that I think is actually was interestingly right on point and right on time was talking about flooding infrastructure. We did specifically talk, especially with Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, about funding for the 17th Street and Locust and some of the things that are needed there to be able to deal with flooding. It was almost exactly on the same day that we were having major storms here in Dubuque and seeing more of that flooding once again and seeing a lot of the damage that occurred there. So I'm really glad that we were able to go to Washington again this year, speak with a unified voice as Dubuque, and be able to say, this is what people are telling us, this is what people need. And I think it was a very successful trip. It was a whirlwind trip. It was very fast for everybody. It was just a day in and a day out, more or less. So thank you to everybody who takes the time to do that, everybody who's done so in the past, everyone who do so in the future. I think it really is very important. Did I miss anything, Mr. Resnick?
I knew you'd do a great job, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, that's nice of you to say. Thank you. The other thing I will say, just mentioning the storm, I just want to thank everybody for the patience and for, making it through that. Really glad that people weren't hurt badly. There was damage, but, we obviously have a disaster proclamation from the governor, which we're thankful for. And also thankful that we have a public works department and a city staff who worked really fast. We got some good compliments on the work that was being done. Everybody seemed to work really well together. I think neighbors worked well together, and I think that's what we need to do in those moments. Last thing I'll say is I did travel just a little bit more today to the beautiful city of Bennett, Iowa. It's a nice little town if you've never been there, and that's where the current president of the Iowa League of Cities is actually located. And the reason I was there is for the Legislative Policy Committee for the Iowa League of Cities meets in person once a year after the legislative session is over to discuss things about legislation that is passed and that might come up. It was a really good discussion. Obviously, property tax funding was talked about there, the property tax bill. One of the things that I just want to make sure I mention out loud is that there is still a lot of, there's some confusion about the property tax legislation and exactly what it says. The league, the Iowa League, and lots of cities in the state are waiting on the Department of Management to speak up and tell us, what does this mean? What's the interpretation of this bill? How can we move forward? So we are waiting on that a little bit and need some of that information before we really move. So just so everybody knows that, and that we're not alone in that at all. The cities in Iowa are all kind of dealing with that at the same time. That's all I've got. So thank you for allowing me to speak there for a few minutes. We do have a oh, please, Mr. Saber, yeah? I thought you were leaning in, sorry. We do have a closed session, so I'll take a motion for that, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Wethel.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss purchase or sale of real estate according to Chapter 21.5 Code of Iowa.
I've got a motion by Wethel and a second by Resnick. For the record, the attorney the city council will consult with on the issues to be discussed in closed session is City Attorney Kerner Brumwell. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Staver? Leyendecker?
Aye.
Sprank?
Aye.
Wethel?
Aye.
Resnick?
Aye.
Kavanaugh? Roussel?
That motion passes 7-0. We are in closed session. Thank you, everybody.